Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the hope of the brave?
Thank you, Chazan. And I'm going to share with everybody just a few thoughts about what's been going on in our congregation over these last number of months, and some of what we're thinking about for the future, and also some words of Torah to conclude with, of what are some guiding ideas as we go forward. First of all, I want to thank everybody for being here today on a beautiful Sunday morning and taking time for your synagogue. And we so wish that we could be together in person, and so we can give each other hugs and we can share food and camaraderie together. And we look forward to the time soon when we'll be able to do that. And this has been a harrowing number of weeks that have been both deeply traumatic in some ways and deeply inspiring in others. This pandemic hit us. We really started shutting down soon after Purim. We didn't realize we didn't realize how serious things were when we had our Purim celebration, and we got very lucky that there were no transmissions to our knowledge of the COVID virus during our Purim celebration. And that was midweek. And by Friday, we had already made the decision, along with all of the other synagogues in town and in consultation with all the rabbis in the city, that we were all going to be shutting our doors for Shabbat services. We did have our Sunday morning and Sunday evening minyan following Shabbat. That night, we had a late night conversation, decided that it wasn't safe for us to be able to have daily services in person, and we moved and we missed one minyan. We missed that Monday morning minyan, that first minyan. And then after that, by Monday evening, we were up with a Zoom service, a Zoom minyan, and we haven't missed one daily minyan since. And that really, I think, set the tone for how we approached reaching our members through this time of pandemic. And I've titled this presentation, Physically Distanced and Spiritually Close, a house of gathering during a time of pandemic, because that's what Beit Knesset means. A Beit Knesset, a synagogue, is fundamentally a house of gathering. And so I'm going to share with you just a few points about some of the things that we've been doing, some of which you may be aware of, some of which you may be unaware of. The first thing, one of the first actions that we took is that David Feingold so graciously stepped up to the plate in leading a group of volunteers to reach out to our most vulnerable. These were through phone calls. And we called, I think, every single member who we felt were in an at-risk category. And we wanted them to feel love and connection. We wanted to also find out if they had local support at home, if these were people who we needed to reach out to Jewish Family Services and find additional assistance for them. And then just this past week, continuing this idea of helping our most vulnerable, we've created a YouTube video. And I want to thank Eric Poe, who's a member of our congregation, who's been volunteering in so much of the areas of technology during this transition. I'm not going to play the whole video, but you'll get just a sense of it. And it's on our website and it's on our YouTube channel. And it walks people through how to use our Beth Shalom live stream page. So you can just click on it and you can see how he walks us through. We're not going to watch the whole thing, but you get an idea.
Let's look at the Beth Shalom live stream and using the live stream controls to change our experience of that live stream.
So you can see how he'll walk us through every single piece in under 3 minutes on how to make this a more pleasurable experience. This slide I've titled, Keeping Our Young Ones Close, Preschool, Religious School, and KCUSY. We did not miss one day of preschool nor one day of religious school, and we found different ways of keeping them close, and we also kept going with all of our youth programming. You can see Becca here with our teens, and you see this picture here is us doing a distance happy birthday for one of our religious school students. And you see here and here our preschool faculty creating great programs on Zoom. Judy and Chazan both trained their faculty on how to get up and running on Zoom, how to let people into their room, how to set up lessons for Zoom. And it was really, I felt it was one of our shining moments for all of our faculty on how they learned new skills and turned on a dime. And Becca has been providing truly an emotional and spiritual lifeline for our teens, for both our Kadima teens and our USY teens, in having a safe virtual space for them to be able to connect with each other and share what's going on in their lives. As I mentioned, we've had Zoom Minyan every single day, and we have used Zoom for a bar mitzvah. This is Frankie Goldstein, Ellie and Gina's son's Zoom bar mitzvah. We've had daily minyan. We've held funerals via Zoom. This is, many of you remember our dear member, Kate Leibovitz, and this is her burial here. And we were able to allow people to be present. And Shivas, we've had Shiva services, Shiva minyans, and Shiva visitations. We've had memorial service, and both Chazan and I have been able to do pastoral counseling through Zoom video conferencing. We now have 3 weekly Shabbat points of engagement. Since the pandemic started, Chazan and I have been leading a split-screen, 30-minute Kabbalat Shabbat program called Connect for Shabbat. And also since the pandemic began, one of us, usually Chazan, but occasionally me, have been leading Havdalah from our homes. And this has been a way of really making it something very personal and intimate. And then just a few weeks ago, just about a month ago, we began live streaming our services weekly, and that's available on our website. And I also want to thank the Ritual Committee for working with me and processing on how we can really try to have this be a reflection of our congregation's values of the very broad tent of religious practice that we have within Congregation Beth Shalom. So we have fixed cameras that are on a timer. Juan Garza is there to be helpful in making sure that things go smoothly and go well. And right now, while it's just the two of us, it's a very short service, and it will expand as the number of people who are allowed to be in Goldsmith Hall expands. Actually, we'll talk about Beth Shalom at home in part of another slide. Here, I just wanted to show that we have adult and family engagement. We have Beth Shalom at home. We have Heltzman. We have Melton. We've had our Chavruta program on Facebook Live. I've also begun a Torah for Lunch program that gets a very nice crowd every week. And this Beth Shalom at home is a way to go into people's homes for members to teach other members about wonderful skills like challah baking or interior design. And Chavruta has been on Facebook Live, and it's been meaningful conversations with different leaders, not just locally, but throughout the country, that I've been leading. And And we've also had our adult education programs continue to function, and we've had a lot of great response from that. Here's a little bit by the numbers, of a little digest of by the numbers to give you a sense of how many people are we reaching. So on our Connect for Shabbat on Friday nights, we get anywhere between 50 and 75 people who sit through the entire service from start to finish at the time that it begins till the time that it ends. But over the course of the week, it's not unusual for us to reach 500 to 800 views. For Havdalah, it's very similar, a little bit lower, but very similar numbers, with 30 to 75 people coming in live and being with the Chazan. Admittedly, our numbers have dwindled as Havdalah has gotten later. We expect a rise in numbers as the end of Shabbat comes a little bit earlier. And we get anywhere between 300 and 600 views of that during the course of that week. And the Shabbat, for Shabbat morning, Beth Shalom at home and Zoom classes, we are not yet broadcasting those on Facebook Live, so we don't pick up additional views during the week, but we've been having really, I think, great numbers for all of these, of having anywhere from 50 to 75 people coming on Shabbat morning. We have 15 to 30, sometimes more, coming to our Beth Shalom at homes, 15 to 45 for our Zoom classes. And the Chavruta programs will have anywhere between, actually sometimes a low of 20 or 30, but averaging between 60 and 80 and up to a little bit over 100 for the live program. And then we've gotten anywhere between 600 and 3,000 views, which means not that they sit through the entire program, but that they spend some time on our Facebook page engaging with that video. So all this shows that our lay leadership, our volunteers, our congregation, and as well as the staff and clergy have really tried to pivot on a dime and really transform all of the offerings that we have into virtual settings. And I couldn't be prouder of all the great work that that our entire staff has done, and so grateful for all the help that all the volunteers have been giving. Our next chapters that we're dealing with this summer is ways of phasing in limited Shabbat worship. We have a reopening committee that's giving us guidance based on the actual numbers that are coming into the Kansas City area and Johnson County in particular, and the state of Kansas. And they're looking at numerous websites of publicly available data to make those decisions. And as you saw, that we had a spike this past week, which is why we're delaying a little bit and seeing if we have. And what we're looking for are 2-week trends of declining numbers of percentage of positive COVID cases, hospitalizations, and deaths. And we're looking at those 3 numbers for when it's safe to increase the numbers that are in Goldsmith Hall together. Because we have a few risk factors. We have a closed space where there's where people are inside, people are singing, which is another risk factor. And we also have our most active Shabbat morning participants are also in the highest risk. So we're being very conservative and cautious with this. This summer, we're dreaming into existence a new way to welcome the new year. We're reimagining religious school, and we're trying to relook at Bar and Bat Mitzvah and see what this can be as a new look at Jewish adulthood. We're really looking at this crisis as an opportunity to reevaluate how do we get to our core values, and how do we bring forth our core values to our people and engaging our congregation in new and creative ways. These are some of the guiding principles for the high holidays and for the religious school that we're exploring this summer through different committees. And if you'd like to be involved with any of these, I invite you to send myself or Chazan Ben Yehuda a personal email or text message or phone. Or after this meeting, you can text Jason Krakow. For about the next half an hour, you can text Art Fetterman. These are some of the guiding principles. What are the most important themes of Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur that we want to guide our high holiday experience? What are the most important educational values for the coming year? In what ways can we celebrate together physically in a safe way that we might not have thought of before? What creative experiences can we curate that allow our congregants to live the holidays or education in new ways? How can we empower families to celebrate and grow Jewishly in new ways, independently? And how can technology be used to bring us closer and not make us feel more isolated? So these are some of the guiding questions that we're going to be exploring this summer as we craft the high holidays, but we also think about especially the first semester of religious school and preschool. And we're watching our numbers and the other school districts closely so that we can create as involved and engaged and safe environment as possible. I want to share with us two teachings. The first is from Rav Kook, the Ashkenazi chief rabbi of Pre-State Israel, and one of the voices for religious Zionism, and one of the thinkers who really gave the Jewish world new ways of thinking what it meant to re-inhabit Israel and really recreate a Jewish polity. And he was the one who really thought of how we approach Shemitah, as well as spirit, which is the sabbatical year, as well as many other spiritual aspects of living in the land of Israel. And he wrote, "Hayashan yitchadesh, v'hachadash yitkadesh." The old will be made new, and the new will be made holy. We are thinking actively about how we can transition all of our most sacred traditions, all of the things and values and experiences that we hold most dear, and make them new. And we're taking new experiences, like having a Torah Chavruta on Zoom, or using a video conference to comfort a mourner. And we are making these previous secular technologies into holy modes of communication. And finally, the last teaching is, Ten li Yavne v'chachmeha. This is what Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai said to the Emperor Vespasian when he saw Jerusalem in flames, and he knew he would have to rebuild Jerusalem. He would have to rebuild the Jewish future. Just give me Yavne and its sages. Give me a place to build society, and give me the smartest people we can find, and give us the inherited wisdom, and we will create a new future. And that is what we're presently engaged in, not only at Beth Shalom, but really Jewish communities and Jewish leaders throughout the country. It's an exciting process. And if you have ideas, suggestions, feedback, please send me a personal email. And with that, I'll conclude. And I just want to thank again everybody who has participated in this grand experiment since March. Thank you.
I think I'm up next. I'm not sure.
You are Gina, and I'll briefly introduce you. Gina Kaiser is and has been the head of our building committee for our new space. Planning for the new space has continued as during the pandemic, as part of our planning for what hopefully will be a new and even more vibrant Beth Shalom when we come out of the pandemic. So Gina, whenever you're ready for your presentation.
I'm ready. Good morning, and I hope all of you and your families are well. As you know, we started the architectural phase of this project, excuse me, with a grand plan. We wanted the sun, the moon, and the stars. We were going to have a 620-seat sanctuary, an expansion of Goldsmith Hall, and a meat kitchen. And I think my allergies are getting my voice. I'm sorry. The architects drew a beautiful plan. We all loved the design, but the price tag for that plan, together with an endowment for increased maintenance costs, was $15 million. So we began to reassess our needs and our priorities. We got feedback from the congregation about what people really wanted. We listened, and we heard that you wanted a smaller sanctuary, that an expansion of Goldsmith and a meat kitchen at this time were not top priorities. We assessed what we could realistically build to afford and maintain. We went back to the architects, and instead of the sun, moon, and stars, we think we got the moon and the stars. That's the plan that I will take you through in a moment. As you will see, it maintains the architectural integrity of the original plan, but on a smaller scale. There's no Goldsmith expansion or meat kitchen in this phase. The new plan will cost approximately $9 million, and we want to raise an additional $3 million for endowment and to retire our existing debt. So our fundraising goal is now $12 million, not $15 million. As the rabbi has said, we have been physically distant from the synagogue building, although we have been virtually close. But virtual closeness does not replace physical closeness. I see my grandchildren on Zoom or on House Party, but I can't hug them, and it's not the same. And praying in a multi-purpose space is not the same as having a dedicated, inspiring space to bring us closer to the divine and to each other. So the rabbi has put up what is now the new design that I'm going to walk you through. Originally, Ron Kopekin, our fundraising chair, was going to do this, but he couldn't be with us this morning. So the rabbi and I are going to do this together. All right, next slide. So the outside of the building, you may recall, originally was an oval sort of shape. That shape has been modified to become more of a rectangular shape because it is much less expensive to build the rectangular shape. As you will see, though, when we get inside to the sanctuary has maintained that ovoid design that really is reminiscent of the rolled Torah scroll. So here's an aerial view. Here's where the drop-off point will be to drive up. Next slide, Rabbi, please. So you're looking at the sanctuary set up for a regular Shabbat morning. And as you will see, the chairs are in a semicircle on the floor. The reader's table and the bima are right there in front. So it's a very intimate kind of design. You're looking at it now from an aerial view where it's set. You see the sort of theater in the round, you see additional seats behind, and you see the balcony. So for a larger Shabbat, we can seat a total of 466. Next. Oh, for the high holidays, we can add extra chairs. And we've had changed the semicircular design on the floor to more rows. And you can vaguely see in the back some light colored chairs that we can add seating. So for the high holidays, we can seat a total of 519. So here's what you've got by area and what you've got by seating. As I said, on the floor on a regular Shabbat, we have 110. Going up the levels for a total of 466. Whoops, come back a tiny bit. And then for the high holidays, we've got a total of 519. Okay, now you can flip. This is just another view of how the entire building would lay out. There is, on the right-hand side of your screen, you'll see there's a drop-off and there'll be parking to walk directly into the sanctuary. Next slide, please. And here we are, where we are to date with fundraising. This slide is actually a week or two old, so the numbers have changed slightly. We have raised a total to date of just shy of 7.5 million. We have an anonymous match that matches 50 cents on every dollar that we've raised. So to get to our 12 million, together with the match, we need to raise another $3 million. Our hard and fast goal is to raise that money by the end of 2020, because we would like to be able to break ground sometime in early 2021. From the time we break ground, it will take approximately 2 years to complete this project. So with your continued help and support, we can make this a reality. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Gina.
Yes, thank you, Gina. And I think I'm next. I gave myself a few minutes on the program for my thoughts, and really there are a couple points that I'd like to make. The first is to echo something that the rabbi said about thank you to so many for the work that you do for the shul. The installation is a time when we can take a few minutes and reflect on just how many people it takes to keep this place going as effectively and in such an inspirational manner as it works. So obviously the rabbi and the chazan, thank you for all your work. Also the senior members of the staff, Judy, Juan, Becca, of course, Steph. Also, during my term, Bernie and Hannon have served as executive directors, and I'm most grateful to them for their leadership as well. All the members of the staff, the preschool, the religious school, the office, the cemetery, all of them. And I believe that the officers know how grateful I am to them for how hard they've worked these past 2 years. But I will just mention Jason and Victor, Miles, Harold, Richard as immediate past president. I'm most grateful to each of them for what they have done, and all of the many volunteers who have responded. Whether it's because I made you feel guilty or for whatever reason, I'm grateful for all the work and all the devotion that so many of you have to the synagogue. And I'll mention Jen Paul and Carol Porter specific to this meeting. Several months ago, they agreed to chair this meeting when we thought it was going to be very different than it has turned out to be. But they were available to staff to brainstorm about how best to put this together. And I'm most grateful to them for their commitment, as well as everyone else who has volunteered. The second point that I want to make, and this really came out of a conversation with the rabbi and Jason, was that being president of the shul, and there are several people on the call who are aware of this, puts you in a unique position, it seems to me, to see just how much the synagogue does for others. So much of that is done quietly behind the scenes, whether it's the bar mitzvah child whose family can't afford to provide him with a tallis, and we find a way to make that happen. Whether it's the child who needs a scholarship to attend camp or to attend religious school or preschool, whether it's the adults who we reach out to, as the rabbi spoke of during the pandemic and at so many other times during the year to provide the assistance that they need. In all these ways, we are teaching and helping people to live their lives Jewishly, and that goes on every day in this synagogue. It goes on because of the work of volunteers. It goes on because of the work of our wonderful staff and our clergy. And I think we all should just take a moment to think about and know that these things have been happening not only during the pandemic, but they're happening every day of the year. We're constantly helping others, whether it's with Shiva Minyanim or with hospital visits, even if they are something that happens by computer. The work goes on every day, and being president has helped me to be aware of that. So I'm most grateful to each member of the shul for your support, for whether that's financial support or with your time or just with your emotional support for our members. I'm most grateful to each of you for everything that you do, and I thank you for it.
There it is. All right. So the new slate of officers we have, new board. So for a 2020 to 2023 slate for the board, we have Julie Rose, we have Art Fetterman, we have Heather Schlossman, we have Linda Lessner, we have Dan Osman, we have Miles Ross, Larry Silver, and Eric Poe. So that is for a 3-year term starting this year. Carrying over.
Go ahead.
Carrying over for a 2-year term that's remaining for 2019 to 2021. We have Stephen Feinstein, Chuck Gasser, Stacy Kahn, Rachel Krantz, Eric Schultz, Josh Soslin, and Victor Wishna. And then for a 2019 to 2022, 2020 to 2022, we have Lou Berry, Louis Cohn, Bernice Haberman, Ann Carty, Harold Kasif, Jason Krakow, and Adam Matzel.
Thank you, Richard. For the new nominees, if there's any objection to any of them being confirmed to the board, raise your hand. I don't have any objection. I don't see any objection, so those nominees will be confirmed. And we'll briefly have a meeting of the board of directors to elect officers, and you have a slate to nominate for that as well.
Yes. So for president, we have Jason Krakow. For vice president and programming, we have Ann Carty. For VP of Ritual, we have Eric Schultz. For VP of Education, we have Victor Wishna. For treasurer, we have Miles Ross. For secretary, we have Adam Matzel. And for the most important job, past president, we have Art Fetterman.
And among board members, is there any objection to those folks' nominations being confirmed? And I'm not seeing any, so those will be deemed confirmed as well. Thank you, Richard, very much for your work on the nominations.
Thank you.
I think we'll go ahead now, and I'll ask the rabbi to install the new board and officers, and then I'll have a presentation to make to Jason, and we'll hear his remarks. So go ahead, Rabbi, whenever you're ready.
Okay, and actually, before I begin with the installation, while he's still serving as president, I'm going to say a few brief words of gratitude to Art Fetterman, our outgoing president. Art, I want to thank you, and especially Diane, for all of the time that you have given to Congregation Beth Shalom over these last 2 years. I know how much time you took away from your family, from your wife, from your children, from your grandchildren, during the time of your precious retirement, and how much time and heart you've given to Chazan Ben Yehuda, myself personally, and the entire congregation. I know that it is typecasting to say that a retired federal judge brought Solomonic wisdom and peacemaking to our beloved synagogue, but that is in fact the case. In all seriousness, we faced many wonderful celebrations and leaps forward as a congregation these last 2 years, but we also faced many challenges and crises. Some, like worldwide pandemics, were obvious to everyone, but other issues were much more private. And with every issue that you faced, you handled it with discretion, honesty, integrity, reflection, and values. You never allowed personalities or prejudice to guide any decisions. Always, you thought about the well-being for our community and our congregation first. Nobody knows until they become president of a synagogue how much a synagogue does for people, the comfort that the shul gives during times of loss, the challenges of educating a new generation of Jews in an ever-changing America, the political nuances that our Jewish community faces in how we engage with the greater world, in our relationship with America, in our relationship with Israel, the place of emotional support and joy that a synagogue can offer, the deep pain that a congregant can truly feel when a synagogue does not live up to its potential. All of these issues are so real, and you encountered them with the seriousness and sacredness that they deserve. You carried with you the values that your parents gave you, that they instilled in you during your years growing up, and you brought them to our shul. And like Moses, when he was doing battle with Amalek, you were not afraid to have your partners on the board, on the officer corps, on the staff and the clergy also hold up your hands so that the entire community of Israel can prevail. And I say to you, Art, I want to share with you a brief teaching that I think describes you so well. The Mishnah in Pirkei Avot teaches, in the name of Rabbi Shimon, that Shlosha Ketarim Heim, there are 3 crowns that a person can have in their life. A Keter Torah, the crown of Torah, which you had before you became president. You learned Torah, you studied Torah, and you continue to do so through your presidents. Keter Kehuna, the crown of the being a Kohen, which you had before and you had during, a Keter Malchut, the crown of kingship, or maybe synagogue presidency, which you had during your presidency, and I'm sure you're happy to allow that crown to be taken off your head, though we're grateful that you wore it. And finally, the Mishnah concludes, V'keter Shem Tov Ola al Gabehen. The Keter, the crown of a good name, of a Shem Tov, supersedes them all. Art, you entered this office with a good name. You carried that good name through it, and you are leaving with a good name, with a Shem Tov. And even more important than that, you allowed your Shem Tov to be connected with the Shem Tov of our community, Congregation Beth Shalom. And I believe truly that your leadership raised our Shem Tov. And so to all of the outgoing officers and to Art Fetterman, the president, I say, thank you for all of your service to our community. Your countless hours allowed our congregation to grow in Torah, to bring holiness to our lives, and to give space for comfort as well as celebration. May you go from chayil to chayil, from strength to strength. You are hereby discharged. And to the new coming officers, and to Jason Krakow, the new president, I'd like to read you some of the verses from the first book of Joshua. Be strong and resolute, for you shall apportion to this people the land that I swore to their fathers to assign to them. But you must be very strong and resolute to observe faithfully all the teaching that my servant Moses enjoined upon you. Do not deviate to it from the right or to the left, that you may be successful wherever you go. Let not this book of teaching cease from your lips, but recite it day and night, so that you may faithfully observe all that it is written in it. Only then will you prosper in your undertakings, and only then will you be successful. We thank the outgoing officers, Art Fetterman, Jason Krakow, Dr. Ann Cardy, Victor Wishna, Harold Kasif, Miles Ross, and Richard Simon. And to the new incoming officers, Jason Krakow, Dr. Ann Cardy, Eric Schultz, Victor Wishna, Adam Matzel, Miles Ross, and Art Fetterman, we say to you, as was said in the book of Joshua, Chazek va'amatz, you should be strong and resolute. You are hereby installed as the new officers of Congregation Beth Shalom.
Thank you very much, Rabbi, and thank you for your kind words. It's now my pleasure and privilege to make a presentation to Jason. There are a couple of items I have to present to you, Jason. One of them is a gavel, which you will have before the next board meeting, and the other, which is very meaningful, is this Kiddush cup, which has on it engraved the names of the people who have served as president of the synagogue going back to Arthur Brandol of Shalom in the year 5729, which would be 1969, I believe. The past presidents, those who are still with us, have been very helpful to me. And they are a resource which, Jason, is available to you as well. Anytime I've called on one of them for advice or counsel, or to do work, they have responded positively, and I'm most grateful to each and every one of them for that. This cup hopefully will be a reminder to you that they're out there, that they're available, and that they're dedicated to Beth Shalom, and that they're a resource that you should call on when you need help or advice. So I will make these available to you just as soon as I can have your name engraved on them, and as soon as I can get out to do that. And congratulations to you, Jason. By handing you the gavel, I'm turning over the meeting to you for your remarks and to conclude. So whenever you're ready, Jason.
Thanks, Art. And thanks to everyone here for giving of your time on this Sunday morning to connect with Beth Shalom in this way, and just for showing up this morning. Judaism is a journey to the future, said Rabbi Jonathan Sachs. and he supports the idea clearly. It's the only civilization whose golden age, the Messianic age, is yet to come. And as a result, Jews look forward more than they look back. Then he goes on to say to be a Jew is to keep faith with the past by building a Jewish future. That's the secret of our unbroken capacity through centuries of suffering to renew ourselves as a people. More than we look back, we look forward, he says. It's not that we don't look back, it's just that more than we look back, we look forward. So indulge me for a moment while I first look back, and then I'll spend the balance of my time looking ahead and try really hard to get us out by about 11 o'clock. So first, a tremendous thank you to Art Fetterman, who truly has led our community these last 2 years as a passionate, dedicated, and stable leader. Even more, Art, for your years of commitment as an engaged member of Beth Shalom, contributing your insights, your intellect, and your skills as a Torah reader, and just your overall demeanor, as Rabbi Glickman said. You really inspire us all to knit together the feelings we have in our hearts for this Jewish community of Beth Shalom, and knit it together with a sharper understanding of how to put our Jewish values into practice. On behalf of the members of the board of directors, I'll be bringing to your home this beautiful Eitz Chaim print. It's by Israeli artist Gad Al-Maliyah. It's embossed with copper, silver, alloy, and brass. And I hope that when you see this piece in your home, that you and Diane will be reminded of the extraordinary good you did for our community, more than you'll remember the extraordinary number of hours you spent doing it. I'm also pleased to share that the board has dedicated a leaf on our mitzvah tree in Goldsmith Hall with the inscription, "With appreciation for Art Fetterman's passionate and committed leadership as president of Beth Shalom." On behalf of all of our community, Art, Yasher Koach on a job well done, and Todah Rabah, thank you. A little round of applause from everyone. We also benefited tremendously from the volunteerism of Hanan Hammer, who stepped in as an interim executive director. At the time, who could have known that we'd need to fully transition to a virtual shul model? Hanan, you truly stepped up. You gave of yourself, you gave countless hours and intellect to our shul, and through it all, you never missed a morning Zoom minyan. You've been a mentor and a stabilizing force for us, and the board has also dedicated a leaf in your honor, which reads, "With appreciation of Hanan Hammer for the contribution of his time and wisdom as executive director." Thanks, Hanan. Now we find ourselves halfway through 2020. The year 2020 isn't exactly living up to the optometrist's definition of 2020, because no, there was no perfect vision that could have seen what was coming for this year. But that's nothing new. And like generations of Jews, we will lean on our values, learn from our experience, and as Rabbi Sachs says about the Jewish people, we survive and flourish, recovering from every defeat and turning every setback into a matrix of renewal. We suffer and yet sing. We walk through the valley of the shadow of death and emerge, limping but undefeated, into the light of new life. Time and again, Jews have shown you can defeat probability by the power of possibility. It means living with the past, but with eyes firmly turned toward the future. What Rabbi Sachs teaches us about the Jewish people's resilience gives us at Beth Shalom two important lessons. First, while it certainly reminds us that together we've overcome bigger and much more significant obstacles than this one, but by accepting the past, we've always built a Jewish future. The second lesson he goes on to explain is the how we've managed this. It comes in the power of asking the simple question, what if? Like Judaism itself, what if is a question that assumes there will be a future, and it inspires us to imagine it. Imagine the possibility of something better. And not just to imagine, but also to act, to assure that those possibilities are achieved. Fortunately for all of us here at Beth Shalom, the what if questions are being asked today by a dynamic team of people with deep connections and love for Beth Shalom. Fortunately for me personally, I get to see up close the work of these people for whom the past, the present, and the intense desire to build an even more vibrant future Beth Shalom drives them every day. Rabbi Glickman, Hazan Tal, Steph Williams, and Judy Jacks Berman lead a devoted staff who truly think about each of us as members every day. I also see the ongoing care and commitment of so many volunteers that make Beth Shalom such a special community. I hope you've been able to engage in the myriad programming that the rabbi described. They put these programs together over the last few months, and when you recognize just how inventive they've been, the new technologies embraced, the new approaches we've taken to meet the moment, I hope you find yourself asking the same question I do. What if? What if these all become the added elements of a future Beth Shalom? One where time and space are enhanced with both a more beautiful and inspiring space for us to come together and a more accessible and engaging array of programs and services supported by technology and all of the creativity that emerged out of these last few months. As an incoming president, I might only get one chance to do this, and I'll probably regret it. But I want to challenge each of you to ask yourself a what-if question. As you might see in my article in the Scroll this month, I encourage you to expect something from your relationship with Beth Shalom. Without an expectation, it's easy to simply go through the motions, resting on what has been. But I just don't think that gives you enough as a member of this community. Every year, our lives evolve, and sometimes it takes major events for us to see just how. Births, b'nai mitzvahs, weddings, graduations, and unfortunately, illnesses and funerals as well. All moments when we naturally take stock of our evolving lives and the relationships that we value. So I'm asking you to turn John Kennedy's famous quote inside out. I'm not asking you to think about what you can do for Beth Shalom, but rather, what can your relationship with Beth Shalom do for you? Ask yourself, what if I take 5 minutes and define my expectations of my relationship with Beth Shalom? And when you work that relationship to meet those expectations, will you see long-standing friends more often? Will you learn something that enriches you spiritually? Will you learn how to make challah or matzo ball soup? Will you have a better way to understand how the values of peace, love, and justice that are central in our sacred texts relate to our world today? On a personal note, I'll let you in on a secret. My favorite parts of my relationship with Shul have always been the hallway minyan and the Kiddush luncheon, more than just about any other offering. Year after year, and with all the ups and downs along the way, it's where I learned what Rabbi Glickman spoke so beautifully about yesterday morning during our Shabbat streaming service. Those moments in life, we're not meant to do them alone. For others, it might be in the kitchen or the gift shop, in the classroom or the scouts room, volunteering with friends at a shelter or food pantry, helping one of our members with technology so they can connect with us online, or doing social justice through interfaith work or helping a child learn to read. And while there are lots of places outside of the synagogue that we interact with people as we go through life, there is nothing like the feeling of seeing someone from synagogue. Maybe you went to preschool with them, or they sat next to you at Rosh Hashanah services. That feeling as you watch their children or grandchild chant their bar mitzvah parsha, or having a bagel with them, or when they're not there, with their mom or dad on a Shabbat morning, and end up hearing about the entire extended family in the process. Or the feeling when you see them at, God forbid, the Shiva for your parent. What I expect of my relationship with Beth Shalom is that it's a place I can count on to bring each other along. And in the process, that we build a community where we connect with each other Jewishly in a particularly Beth Shalom sort of way. And if you're still stumped on what you expect from this relationship, then I think you should at least expect a bagel and a conversation. And in this moment, that might mean inviting someone to watch the live stream Shabbat service with you, or to call and say, hey, are you watching this program on Zoom or Facebook Live? So as we wrap up this annual meeting, together with this new board and with my fellow officers Ann Carty, Victor Wishna, Miles Ross, Eric Schultz, Adam Matzel, and Art Fetterman, I hope that you are as excited about Beth Shalom's future as we are, and that you join us and bring someone else along on this journey to the future as we build Beth Shalom into the place, both physical and digital, where we don't go it alone. Thanks for joining us today. We'll get to your questions in follow-up after the meeting. Thank you all.
Thank you, Art, and thank you, everybody, for coming today to today's annual meeting.
Yasher Koach.
An hour.